Hey everyone, welcome back to another lesson in the Adobe Lightroom 5 crash course. Today we're going to look at developing our photos and actually editing them, and we're going to learn all the tools that Lightroom has to do so. So this is going to be a longer lesson, so stick with it. There's going to be a lot of information, and I'm going to go through each tool rather quickly, but in the next lessons I'm going to go through them a little bit slower and talk about why I'm doing it. This lesson is just to show you what they do. And so I imported a couple more photos just to give a little bit more variety for this course. I imported some photos from Arizona, spring training, and Seattle as well. So let's go ahead, and when you want to develop a photo, you click on a photo, select develop, and you can actually get to any of these photos down here in this little bin right here. So we can search through my photos. So how about this one? This is a nice one to begin with. So we got this nice flower up in Seattle by the Space Needle. So over here on our right are all the tools that we can use to edit photos. There's a few things up here that I'll go over in future lessons, like the spot removal, red eye, graduated filter, radial filter, and the adjustment brush, but those are more advanced. The one up here that is basic that I want to teach you is crop. To crop an image, you click this crop icon, and it pops up these little corners and edges to your picture. You can drag and move your image in and out, and then move the image around so that you have a nicely composed image. You can change the aspect ratio by clicking right here, aspect, to as shot, original, custom. They have some preset ones, or you can enter custom ratios. So if I want to change this to 16:9, if I'm using this for say a video or something like that has a 16:9 aspect ratio, I can do that. I'm just going to keep it as original, and then I'm going to bring it in. Another thing you can do is with this little lock, you can unlock it and you can create whatever aspect ratio you want, like so. I undid that. If it's locked though, it won't let you. It will keep it locked to this aspect ratio. And the last thing is this angle. You can rotate your image by doing this angle slider, or you can move your mouse to the edge of the frame and click and drag to rotate. Once you're ready to finish your crop, you think you have it nicely composed, just press enter or return on your keyboard. So that's how you crop. The next one are these basic treatments with sliders. The first section up here is white balance or color temperature. So when editing photos, you want to make sure that the colors look proper. What I mean is that the whites look like white, the reds look like red. Let me give you an example of something that's not properly white balance. See this image? Everything looks a little bit yellow. My skin looks yellow, my shirt looks yellow, but in fact this shirt is supposed to be white. So one way to white balance a photo is to take this eyedropper, find where there's white in your frame, and click on that. And that will make it properly white balanced. So now, this shirt is white. The window outside looks blue because the lights that are inside are tungsten lights, which are a little bit warmer, and so we're white balancing to those tungsten lights. But say we want to make it a little bit warmer. You can click and drag this slider, this temperature slider, to make it more or less warm or more cool. You can also hover over that slider with your mouse and press up or down on the keyboard to adjust those numbers. Tint will also help you white balance from a greenish to a magenta. So if you think it has a little bit too much green, you could bump up the magenta. Of course, that's a little bit too much, so I'm going to go back to about like that, 21. You can also use these preset white balance options. So let's go back to another picture. This is myself with my girlfriend's grandmother in the Philippines. So you can change from as shot to auto, where it will automatically try to correct the color. And that works really well. So as you can see in as shot, everything has like a yellow tint, and you get that when you're shooting inside photos. Auto makes it look more natural. It makes this cup especially look more white, and that's a good gauge to check out. You can go to daylight, and these are basically, you're saying that the light of the situation of the photo was daylight, outside light. That's what daylight means, but it wasn't. It was inside light, so that's why this looks really yellow. Was it cloudy outside? No, and that's why it looks terrible. Were we in the shade? No. Were we sitting under tungsten light, which is what inside light is, like your indoor light bulbs? Yes. So that's what looks the best. Fluorescent lights, were there fluorescent lights? No. And were we using the flash? No. So there's, as I show you, there's many different ways to fix the white balance. One is by using the eyedropper. One is by just playing with these sliders to get the right temperature. And the other is to use this drop-down menu for the preset options. For example, though, you can use these options to give a nice effect. So instead of just correcting white balance, you can make things more warm. So I'm going to take this slider and make this image really warm. Say you want it like that. You know, this isn't necessarily a bad photograph now because it looks kind of nice. Or if you want it more blue, or if you want to take it back to how it was shot. So that's white balance. Exposure, we'll go through this, and then we're going to break up these lessons into a few different lessons to keep them in shorter chunks. So exposure is how bright or dark your photo, and you can play with exposure by moving this slider up or down. And what this does, it brightens the entire photo. So the entire photo is getting brightened or darkened. To set it back to 0, you can double click on the title right here. So this photo is properly exposed, but something like this is underexposed. So that's where I would raise the exposure of this photo. Contrast is going to make the darks darker and the brights brighter. As you can see here, let's show you. So the dark colors right here under this flower curl will become darker, and then the brights will become brighter. Check it out. Just subtly. And as you increase contrast, you also get more saturation. The colors become a little bit more colorful, more saturated, and it begins to pop. So a lot of photographers like adding contrast to their photos. You can adjust the exposure of the different areas of your photo. So all the highlights, so all the brights, you can adjust those individually with this highlight bar. So as you can see, when I go from here all the way down, it's just affecting some of the highlights where there's brighter areas of this photograph. Shadows, same thing. I can bring it down or all the way up. If I bring it down, you notice these parts of the photo where there are shadows, those are what are being affected. Whites are the extreme highlights, so this will affect your photo even more. And so those are the highlights, or above the highlights, not even the highlights, but the spots brighter than the highlights. And then the blacks are the spots that are darker than the shadows as well. So this can affect that as well. And so you can adjust the exposure for all these different sections. For example, for this photo, if I increase the exposure to make my face exposed properly, the background gets too blown out, too overexposed. So how do I do this? I adjust the shadows individually. So this adjusts this area of the photo, and then I can bring down the highlights and the whites. And so this photograph looks a lot better than how it was before, and you can see it before by clicking the reset and toggling back with undo. So this is the original, and this is how it ends up by using these sliders down here. Alright, so the last few parts of this this section, this treatment section, the basic section, are clarity, vibrance, and saturation. Clarity will try to use sharpening and grain to make sure that your photos are in focus. And I'm not a huge fan of this slider right here, but sometimes it really helps, especially for landscapes or nature photography. It can really make your images pop. But when you're doing it to people and portraits, it doesn't look that great. So here you can see how sharp everything is. If I take it all the way down, everything gets a little bit fuzzy and cloudy. So usually I'll bump up clarity a few notches. Vibrance and saturation. First, let's do saturation. Saturation will make all of the colors on your image more saturated, more colorful. As you can see, the oranges become way orange. The greens become way green. If you take it down, you can desaturate things or make it even black and white if you want. So adding saturation is good, but I think you should start out by doing vibrance. Vibrance is basically smart saturation. So it makes things saturated, but it has a mind of its own, really, and it saturates only certain parts of the image. So if I increase this all the way, it still looks somewhat natural. You can start to tell that this isn't quite a natural photo, that there is some editing done to it. But you know, even if you bump it up to like 50 or so, it looks pretty good. On the other hand, if you bump saturation up to 100, it starts to get distorted and really weird. It does not look like nature at all. And so using vibrance instead of saturation can help make your photos look even better if you want to add saturation and make your colors pop. So I'd start by using the vibrance slider. So that was a lot of information, and I thought I was going to get through all of this in one lesson, but I think I'm going to break it up into a few parts. So that was the first part. I hope you understood it all. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know, message me, or watch this video again. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.